Michael Chambers here again. I'm going to improvise this one. So before I'd scripted it so that it sounded a bit more polished, but this one's more personal. It's about my connection with Nigel Farage, an indirect connection. He doesn't know me, but the connection is through Somaliland. Somaliland is the much of the northern part of Somalia. And how does he know about Somaliland? How do I know about it? Okay. And what's the common policy that we agree on? Well, basically, his grandfather, as I understand it, was stationed out in Somaliland when it was a British colony before 1960s. Um, and obviously he must have got on very well with the people there, and I have a good impression of them and pass that on to his family, including Nigel. And so Nigel has this personal connection with Somaliland, and he wants to help them in their campaign for international recognition as an independent state. So, and I learned about this myself, okay? So I learned about the history of Somaliland because when I started my career in teaching English as a foreign language, I met somebody in a city in England who is a health promotion campaigner within the Somali community, Somali speaking community, who wanted some help with funding applications to the National Lottery and for campaigns. And this professional relationship continues. I have helped her get the first grant from the National Lottery for a campaign, which was to produce a book of oral histories called The Bright and Dark Colours of My Life. And it's a five or six Somali ladies who are living in this country, giving their history of their life in Somaliland, and their culture, and also sharing some painful experiences of FGM, female genital mutilation, which is a big thing still in Somalia in East Africa. So that's why it's bright and dark. And I helped my client turn her oral histories into a book. Okay, I edited it with her, made it look good. And I I I did the must spend about 200 hours on that. I got paid £1,000, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it more for the love and for the belief. And I learned a lot about Somaliland and Somali culture in that process. And they've gone on to bigger and better things, teaching English, sewing skills, all sorts of things. So she's a real dynamic community organizer. Um, so I've helped out with other things later as well. So anyway, so I learned a bit about Somaliland. I learned that it was the British protectorate um, before 1961. In the south was the Italian Somaliland. And when the countries got their independence, they united as one country because it's the same Somali people, some ethnically the same, linguistically the same, but just different tribes. So unfortunately, then what happened is in the 1970s and 80s, I think, Mohammed Said Barre, the president of Somalia down in Mogadishu, the southern part, for some reason waged war on the northern tribes. And that really broke the nation, and it broke the unity of the nation. And the result is that the tribes in the north, the Somaliland area, want to be independent. They've had enough of misrule by Somalia. And in the north, in the Somaliland, the tribes have a very interesting democratic system, which is a kind of fusion of Western democracy and tribal loyalties and tribal recognition of the roles of different tribes. And for that reason, it's very stable. So it's that part of Somalia, the state of Somalia, is much more stable than the southern part, where the capital is. And in fact, aid agencies are more likely to base themselves in the northern part in Somaliland. So you would think, well, actually, it's an ideal candidate to become an independent state if it wants, because it has the stability that's greater than the southern part, which rules the whole nation. But the problem is that the African Union will not recognize Somaliland because Somalia won't agree. So I presume they operate by consensus. And Somalia has the seat on the African Union. Somaliland doesn't have a seat. And so Somalia is blocking recognition of Somaliland by the African Union. And the way it works across the world is that the other countries in the world, even if they're sympathetic, are are not going to recognise Somaliland until the African Union does so first, out of respect for African politics. So that's their issue. That they're one of these countries in the world that is in a that's operating as a country but not recognised as such. And so Nigel Farage is committed to supporting their quest for recognition as an independent state. And so I don't know what's going on in the background to prepare for that as if he was in government now. I mean, one thing I would suggest is that he links up with geopolitical experts like Tony Blair, who obviously has a complicated life and past. But he runs the Tony Blair Foundation, which seems to be some geopolitical think tank. And I think he owes it to us to do some free work for us on that. So, but anyway, whatever experts are needed to try to break this deadlock, I think it will be an extremely complex and delicate diplomatic coup to get recognition of Somaliland, needing fantastically well-developed relations across Africa. I don't know the ins and outs, but it seems to be quite a complicated thing. And so, yeah, and so there are people in Somaliland who are in Britain, and they are quite marginalised. I'd say a lot of them, especially the women. A lot of them are not learning a good level of English. It's just really hard. English is so different to Somali. The culture is very different. Um, so, there are many, many issues in terms of social cohesion. But, they're generally law-abiding people who want to work, who want to get on in life, and it's difficult for them for many of them in British cities. Their children are more likely to be able to integrate because they go to British schools and grow up here.